Welcome to the Dance Reel podcast. I'm Kate Histon. To be part of our community, subscribe or follow this channel. This episode was sponsored by Master Dancer Mindset. Know yourself, be yourself, and express yourself on and off the stage. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking with Amelie Pollock. Amelie is a professional jazz dancer and was originally one of my students for 10 years before entering the big world of dance. So sit back, relax, have a cup of tea, and listen to the wonderful journey of Amelie. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Amelie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Kate. How are you?
I'm good. And can I just say, I'm recording from Germany and you're currently in London, so we're on similar time zones.
Crazy.
It's great. And so Amelie, as I've mentioned, was one of my students, and you first started dance with Dance Dynamics Byron Bay, didn't you?
Yes, I did a long time ago, but I did.
How and why did you begin dance?
It was a funny story, really. I mean, when I was, 5, I think, my best friend at the time was taking classes at this school in Byron Bay. I thought, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to go and hang out with her in the afternoons. So mum was like, oh, okay, that's fine. You go ahead, do that. So I started doing dance classes with Dance Dynamics. And then one thing led to another. And here I am, however many, 15 or so years later, and I'm still dancing and loving every second of it. But yeah, it literally all started with my best friend. And I was like, I want to do what she's doing.
And if I can interject, I remember when you first came to class and just this cute little smiley girl. That first year for the concert, you were a little witch and so animated. No, you were so animated. Watching you on stage, acting came naturally to you.
Yeah, very overdramatic, always.
Not at all. A natural performer, a natural performer.
Yeah.
And then you were with Dance Dynamics for 10 years and you did really well. You started Eisteddfod work. How old were you when you started Eisteddfod's solos?
Solos, I think, was when I hit high school. So 12, 13 is when I started to do solos. But before that, obviously, we did groups. But my mum and I kind of made the decision throughout those first years of doing groups that I wouldn't start doing solos and competing for myself until I hit high school, just like a little bit of a slightly different maturity.
And I really admire that because one thing when I had the school, watching the dynamic between you and your mum, I always thought this is a healthy relationship of how a mother can support and facilitate her daughter to be her best. Can you talk about that and your experience of your mum supporting you through competitions?
I think I was very lucky growing up with, especially like both my parents, my mum and my dad. They were very supportive from the first day of supporting my dream and my passion. I think my mum never got too involved, which was a blessing. Also, sometimes I'd be like, Mum, why don't you know these things? You know, I remember one day, so specifically, she said to me, what's the difference between demi-character and lyrical? And I just looked at her and went, Mum, how can you be asking me that question right now? But in hindsight, it was such a good thing because she kept me calm, she kept me grounded and very humble as well. She would always support me and push me into doing things. But if it ever came to a moment when I was like, actually, you know what, I don't think this is for me anymore, she would not in one way take offense or take it personally. She would support me in that journey as well, if that had been the case. Same with my dad. I remember him coming to some solo competitions and he was like my lucky token. He would sit in the audience and I seemed to do really, really well when he was there. And then he would come out, give me a high five, and then he would go wait in the car until I was all done packing up after my solos and things. So yeah, I've been really lucky, especially when I then decided that I actually wanted to take this on and do this as a career. There hasn't been one moment that both of my parents have questioned why I would do that, because it is such a left of field career, I think, especially for the older generation. I think, you know, you usually finish school and go and do these certain things and go to uni. But my parents are like, if this is your passion, this is what you need to do. This is where you need to chase it, and we will support you and be there for you every step of the way. So I'm so like, there is just so much, not enough words to really express how grateful I am for that. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. And I remember your mum coming into our office. So this is probably in your last or second last year. And Kim came in and she sat down. She went, right, I know I'm not a dance mum. And I said, no, you are the ideal dance mum because you really are giving space to let Amelie step into herself. And, you know, she was supportive of us as a school with that. if there was ever anything, she'd just come check in. How's Emily going? And we could just have that conversation. And then she asked me, okay, what do I need to know? Like, what's the next steps? And we had a chat. So those next steps for you, you did a term at Transit Dance, and then the following year you did your first year of full time, the National College of Dance. And the aim for that, you knew you wanted to do commercial dance, but the aim was to really polish up the classical technique.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Take us from there. What was full time like? Oh, sorry. First of all, you also got ducks at the National College of Dance, didn't you? For someone that was like, I'm not a ballerina, you actually came out getting. Can you explain that? That's awesome.
So that was a big 2 years of my life at National College. I remember the first day we had our orientation and we were all sitting there with our parents, and my mum had moved to Newcastle with me, which was a huge commitment. And again, to this day, so much gratitude to her and my dad for allowing that to happen. But I remember sitting there with my mum, and just after the orientation, I went up to her and I just had tears in my eyes, and I looked at her and went, I'm not meant to be here, because there were 7 of us at that time in my full-time year, and they were all ballerinas. And I was there coming in as this contemporary kid who wasn't even really a contemporary kid. I just had showed up and went, I guess this is where I'm going. And again, those 2 years for me were so rewarding. So we did ballet 6 days a week. I was at the studio all the time. And then I did a lot of contemporary. We did competitions still. I completed a certificate 4 and then a diploma in dance. And then at the end of my second year was surprisingly awarded ducks somehow, but which I think, yeah, it was kind of a nice little way to top it off, because those years, as much as they were very rewarding, it was very challenging as well, mentally, physically, emotionally. You know, those are your years of your 15. When I went there, I was 15, and then I graduated when was freshly 17. So I was still just so young, navigating those teenage years whilst being in a room doing ballet every day and needing to pass my exams and also completing a certificate and just figuring and sorting through all of that. At the end, I was really happy with how those 2 years resolved for me, which then obviously led me on to move to Sydney as well after that, because as much as I loved and fell in love with contemporary at that school, I all of a sudden turned around and went, I want to do jazz. And they were kind of like, oh, okay. I was like, see you later, everyone. I'm moving to Sydney now. I'm going to do musical theatre. So that's kind of what took me down even further south to Sydney to do another year at full time. So yeah.
Great. And then where did you go full time in Sydney?
Yeah, so I did a year at Eddinghausen's Pro in Sydney in the Shire, which was more focused on commercial and musical theatre, jazz training. Sydney's a very commercial industry, so they kind of cater for that. But in saying that, we did everything. I also think as much as Sydney is a commercial industry, Australia as a whole in the dance industry kind of train you to be this versatile artist. One thing I really appreciated about ETS was the fact that we trained in everything 5 days a week. We did singing, we did acting, we did anatomy, we did Pilates, but then we were doing jazz, hip hop, tap, ballet, contemporary, lyrical, like we were doing it all, which again, that year for me was I think that really kind of tipped me over the edge and went, oh, okay, I can actually really, really do this now. I will say, though, that I did spend 2 out of my 3 full-time years in COVID lockdown. So that was, again, a totally different layer to add on to your already hectic full-time lifestyle. To be then doing it alone in isolation on Zoom was just like another ball game. But surprisingly, I think my year at Eddinghausen's, when I did Zoom full-time, I think that's when the most improvement actually happened for me, which surprises me still to this day. I don't know why. I think I was in that room by myself and there was no one else for me to compare myself to. So I was just there for myself, training and believing in myself. So a lot of growth happened in that period, which always seems quite surprising.
I know one thing about you. You've always been self-driven, and ever since you were a little child, you were always very lovely to your peers. You just were very focused. So you didn't do it in a cutting anyone down way. You were never like that. So good on you. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
What about your first paid jobs? What was it like? And tell me all about that.
The past 5 years of my life has kind of felt like an absolute whirlwind. I think it has for everyone. But once I finished full time, I did a course in Sydney called Dream Show Business with Marco Panzik, which was 3 months. And then from there, I moved to New York and did a 4-month program training there. So I did a lot of training because I was so hungry for it. And I also still felt quite young because when I finished full time, I was only 18. So I still felt like I had some years underneath me to get some more training in before I started really going in. And then when I was 19, so 2023, I booked my first professional job, which was a show in Melbourne called Metamuse, created by Luca Donato. And it was an original jazz show that pretty much just celebrated jazz dance for what it is and also music and how they can collaborate. And I think like every day, I honestly think about this job. It was the most magical experience ever. And I think as a first job for someone in the industry, I lucked out. Like I won the lottery with that. It was the most incredible whole period, rehearsal period, all the way through tech to the shows. The cast was amazing. And to me, it is to this day my dream job because just getting to dance jazz to live music, having a musician on stage and the music was created for us by composer Louis Edwards. And we were all each our own instrument. And then the show kind of just brought all these instruments together. And it was just the most magnificent thing. And we were lucky enough to get funding to do a second season later in the year. So the first season was in June and the second season was in September. The most incredible first job ever. I was just so lucky to be able to do that.
Oh, beautiful. And you're now in London. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I've been in London for about 7 months now, which feels like not that much time, but also it feels like a whole lifetime. Start of last year, kind of decided, okay, I think I'm going to do this now. Mum and Dad decided that they were going to midlife crisis, go and buy a boat and live on the ocean in the middle of Europe. Bless
So
them,
cool.
doing amazing things. And so they were kind of like, if you're going to do it now or never, Amelie, because we're going to be there, so you may as well. And for me, I'd always wanted to do it, especially after coming back from New York. I thought, you know what, London is so accessible for Aussies, especially with the visa situation. So I figured, you know what, I do need to do it. I just don't know when. I don't know if I'm ready yet. When are you ever ready to do these sort of things? And then Luca Donato, who booked me on my first job, sent me a voice memo one day. And she went, by the way, I'm moving to London on this date. You're assisting me in Poland in June. You need to be either in Poland or in London. And I was like, oh, okay, so it looks like I'm doing this. And I pretty much, Mum and Dad had moved overseas. I was living in Sydney by myself. My brother and sister were in different states. And I went, okay, I'm doing this. And I sat down and I booked my flight, one-way ticket, no return, and went, all right, let's do this. 2 months later, I got on that plane and I moved to London. Like it was just the most insane 2 months of packing up in Sydney, moving half my stuff back to Byron Bay, getting myself ready to move to the other side of the world and just figuring all of that out. But again, so rewarding when I got here because I was like, oh, I just did that all by myself. I turned 21 and then I moved to London 2 weeks later. So it was, a crazy experience. But yeah, since living here, I've been loving it so much. It's such a magical city. The weather, maybe not so much, but the city itself is incredible and the dance community here is wonderful. And there's just so much opportunity to train and I've started working, just doing small gigs here and there. And I've signed with a magnificent agent. He is wonderful. I've never felt so supported in my life. So
name drop.
Yeah. Name drop Rob, Rob Goldberg with Toast Management. He's great. If you're ever in London, he's great. Yeah. So I'm very, very lucky.
Okay. That's wonderful. And along this journey of yours, and as I've said before, you've been very driven, kind and lovely human as well. As you've reached from one level of success to the other, how have you managed friendships and have you come across, the whole haters thing, jealousy? And if so, how do you feel it? Like, how do you identify it? And then what do you do?
Yeah. I think so far I've been pretty lucky. One of the biggest things for me in my life is community. I think because I've moved so much, I've always had to find home in the people around me rather than the place that I am. So I have surrounded myself with very like-minded people. I don't think I've ever experienced haters as such, but there is always this sense of competition, especially when you're in the school scene. This industry is so competitive that from the first moment you start, you're basically pinned up against your peers. So that is quite difficult to navigate at such a young age. For me, I think the most interesting thing was when you're recognized as someone with talent, how people drift towards that, if that makes any sense. I think
Yeah.
so. Sometimes it can be hard to identify whether someone wants to be your friend because of what you offer them or because they genuinely like you as a person. I think in saying that, I'm very lucky. As I said, the people in my life are so incredible, and I truly cherish all of my friendships, both in Byron, Sydney, London, New York, wherever I've met these people. But I also think like social media can make it quite difficult to understand whether actually you're friends with someone or maybe it's almost like a transactional friendship, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely something difficult to navigate, especially because we start in this so early on and so we're so young when you're all of a sudden like, oh, I need to be as good as or better than her or better than him, and I need to beat them and get a higher score. And it's full on, but I think you just have to stay grounded and true to who you are. And also, if it's inevitable that you're going to make mistakes. I think that's one of the biggest things for me as well. You meet people, you make friends, and then maybe later on you go, oh, actually, maybe that didn't serve me. And maybe they weren't in it for the right reasons. And that's okay. And you just move into a different direction and you find the people that do serve you and do make you feel inspired and loved and, supported at all times.
And you can
Yeah.
feel when friendship is a two-way street, you can feel that connection. And sometimes initially, I don't know, I can easily get drawn to people, different personalities, but time always tells how if it's a stay friendship. Along the way of your dance journey thus far, have you ever wanted to quit?
I can't think of a moment that I've ever gone, nah, this isn't for me anymore. I think there's definitely been moments of burnout and emotional and physical draining, but there hasn't been one moment since I started that I've gone that I could see my life without dancing. I think from the moment I began, and especially the point in which I went, actually, I'm going to chase this as a career now. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. There's definitely been times though that I've pushed so hard that I'm like, oh, okay, I just need to take 2 weeks for myself just to be a muggle. Oh, a person who doesn't dance. We call them muggles. Oh, sorry. That's crazy. I just had to be a muggle and I just need
From
to
Harry Potter.
yeah. That's so funny. That's what we call people that don't dance. That's terrible.
No, it's great.
But yeah, there's been those moments that I've been thinking to myself, like, I just need a moment to myself just to replenish my soul. But never have I thought, this is it. I'm actually done now. And I think even some people have said to me, will you ever do something like a real job? And I'm like, this is my real job. What do you mean? Like, this is what I do. I can't see myself doing anything else. Of course, I work jobs on the side so that I can pay for my life. But this is my passion. This is where it's going to be for me always.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
And what's some of the biggest challenges you've had in the industry thus far?
Definitely the consistent no's. Once you start auditioning for jobs, that it's hard. You have to build up this resilience just to continuously each week. It's a no from this job. It's a no from that one. You've been let go. You've been released. And I think even since moving to London, I've been fortunate enough to be in a few audition rooms and like did my first West End audition the other week. And, you walk away feeling so good and then you get that no. And then the next day you get another no and you're like, okay, I just need to pick myself up and keep working because I love this and that right now, this isn't what's meant for me and what's meant will come. But in saying that, even when the jobs do come, I was speaking before about my first job, Metamuse, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome when I was working on that job. I kind of questioned many times why I was there and how I could be in that room. I didn't believe that I was talented enough or had enough credit to even be in that room working with those people and be on that stage. Which was really interesting because now I look back at it and I'm like, of course you're meant to be there. Like, what do you mean? But in the moment, I remember most days, especially the first 2 weeks of rehearsals. I don't even think I've told Luca this before, and she's a very close friend of mine, but I remember going home most days, just like tears on the tram going, I'm not good enough to be in that room. What am I doing? Why am I here? And that's really hard to navigate, especially when you're on your dream job and then all of a sudden you're questioning why you're there because we work so hard to get to that spot. And as soon as you're there, your mind and your mental is like pulling you away from enjoying it, which again, one of the biggest challenges is just that negative self-talk. And that's something that comes in when you're training, I think, as well. Something that I dealt a lot with whilst I was in full time and still haven't fully, do any dancers fully get rid of that? I'm not sure. You learn how to deal with it and push it away and go, that's actually not the reality. But when you're still kind of navigating and understanding that, it's hard. It sits there the whole time and tells you you're not good enough to be here. Why are you doing this? They shouldn't have booked you. It was a mistake. So that's quite scary. But once we got to the second season of that show, I was like, oh no, this is me. I'm loving every moment. But the first season it was difficult to understand why I was there.
And I wish we were taught this when we were younger. I found this when I started the dance school. I was quite young and I had to learn, oh my gosh, I have a business. I needed to learn about business. And one of the things I learned quite quickly was whenever you get, say, a promotion or you learn something new, there's this patch of conscious incompetence, which can then come across as imposter syndromes. But then after 3 months of really settling into it, then you become conscious that you're competent and you have that moment of aha. And so with every new evolution in whatever we do in life, we're going to have the level of imposter syndrome. And I kind of go, it's nice almost to reframe the imposter syndrome of it's keeping me humble and making sure I'm really on my toes, and I will grow into this. I will get it. Yeah, that's like me doing this. What am I doing? Being over here in Germany, though, it was nice to start this because I'm also doing German school, learning how to speak German, and that's having that new thing and then this new thing. There's definitely a level for me of excitement and stress, and I feel it in my body, and I'm having to remember to relax into it, and I'm going through this growth phase of learning all this new information, a whole other language, how to use this system, and everything. And so London life, what's that like?
Busy. I feel like I never stop, honestly. I think even when I was living in Sydney, I found it quite similar of that when you're in the city, it's just this constant hustle and grind, and you feel like you're chasing almost like a hamster on a wheel, which sometimes can be scary, but I also love it. Like I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have stayed if I didn't enjoy it. But London life for me is just a whole lot of dancing, a whole lot of working and hanging out with my friends and traveling. I think I've been really fortunate since moving here to travel quite a bit. Like I hadn't been to Europe or I hadn't been to the UK before I moved here, just came on a whim. And then when I got here, I've got to travel to all these different countries and see the world and do all of that. Yeah, I train a lot. I do a lot of programs whilst throughout the year, just because I always just want to keep training, which is really great. And then I teach Pilates as well, which is really nice. It kind of keeps a wonderful balance on my life. But London is it's busy and it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful city. The weather can be difficult, especially this time of year. I'm starting to gather. But I think, again, it's about the people around you that'll get you through the tougher times of the winter and things. I'm very lucky with my support network here in London and in Australia as well. My friends here are wonderful, and they keep it light when the days are getting dark at 3:30 p.m.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it. It's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy. Oh my goodness. When you've grown up in Byron Bay where it's days are long, dip in the ocean every day, I'm like, I just need to swim in the ocean and all will be well. But it's a beautiful change as well. It's nice to just kind of surrender to the change.
It's 0 degrees here today.
Oh my gosh, I'm complaining. It's like 7 degrees here. That is crazy, 0 degrees.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I wanted to also ask you one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed, is you're very good at knowing what you want and going for it. So what the process is in your mind, if you've even thought about it, of when you know you want something and your relationship with visualization or making it come to fruition with mindset.
It's actually interesting because I feel so two ways about that. I think I have always been very much like, okay, so this is what I'm doing next. This is where I'm going. I'm going to move here. I'm going to train this. I'm going to do that. But if you ask my mum, the years of me at National College when we were deciding what I was to do next, anytime she would say, so next year, I would just burst into tears and I couldn't talk about it. So for me, I struggle. Sometimes it's almost like choice paralysis. Like I struggle to make decisions. But then also sometimes I just know, like I have a gut feeling and I'm like, actually, yeah, that's the path I'm going to go on. But I think sometimes I just do things on a whim and just hope for the best, especially moving to London. As much as I said, I thought about it after New York. I said to my best friend at the time, I said, I think we could move to London together. Like I would love to move to London. She was like, oh, absolutely. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden one day I texted her and I said, oh, so I just booked a one-way ticket to London. And she was like, oh my goodness, what? said, surprise, I've decided I just need to go. It's just, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I think I've always just been so hungry for this as well, that to me, making decisions for my career is just like you need to make it, you just need to make it happen. Just go, just do it. Continue to chase, continue to expand as well. But in my day-to-day life, I can't make a decision to change, like to save my life,
Yeah,
honestly.
but don't you find I kind of had a giggle because my husband this morning asked me something about next week. It's our
Yeah.
son's birthday, and I felt like the emotion of feeling like I actually have no space right now to think about that. Like I can't
Yes.
even,
Oh, yes.
and like,
Oh
can
my
you just
goodness.
do that for us? Anyway,
Absolutely.
but I
I
noticed
think,
myself, the emotion rising. I'm like, oh gosh, I need to take a chill pill. No,
no,
don't. I need to have a relax.
that's me too. And I think that's the same. Anytime I have to do anything that's slightly adult, that my parents, they'll send through by the way, you just need to do this with your healthcare. I'm like, oh, I just don't have the mental capacity to do this. I'm too focused on all the other little things in my life. And it's just like these cogs turning. But yeah, as I said, if it's anything to do with my career, I'm always 100% in, and I'm ready to always take the next step, which is, been such a blessing for me.
That's wonderful. And what are your goals? What are you, if you want to share them, your next steps? Do you have any thoughts and feelings about what you'd like to do in London from as well?
Totally. As anyone that moves here, I would just love to work. But for me, one day I would love to be on the West End and do a show here, which would be amazing. But I also have, since moving here, realized that I also can do the other side of things as well. So do the commercial scene. I gratefully danced in a movie end of 2023, and being on that set was so magical. And I was like, moving here, I would love to do that again. A lot of movies are obviously filmed in London as well, so there is the opportunity to do that. So for me, that's another big dream, is working on another movie set, doing the West End. I would love to, honestly, I'm just happy to take it all. So that, which, without sounding greedy, of course, but I just love it. Like, I just love dancing, and I just want to perform with people and transport others away for just a moment and bring them into a story, or just, if you're dancing behind an artist, be a part of something that's bigger than you and all of that. So I just want to dance, preferably on a
Yeah.
stage on the West End, but well,
It will happen for you. You're a goer.
yeah.
So, what are the biggest misconceptions young dancers may have about a professional dance career?
Honestly, that it's easy, maybe. I think especially now these days with social media, you see the highlights of everyone's lives. You see the jobs that are consistently coming in, but that's not the reality. Of course, it is to an extent, because those people are booking those jobs, but you don't see the groundwork that has been laid. You don't see the hustle that happens behind. You don't see the amount of no's that someone gets as well. I think now training, especially full-time schools, are so accessible to all students, which is in itself amazing, but it also doesn't mean that it's a career for everyone, without sounding extremely blunt. I think there is a lot, as I've spoken about previously, you need a lot of resilience for this career, and you learn that very, very quickly. I think the older generations, obviously it was a different time coming through those schools, which I know that you've touched on before, but teachers, and it was just all so different to now, because we are in the day and age of social media, and we're understanding boundaries a lot more, and we're understanding mental health a lot more and speaking about it, which is so wonderful. But in saying that, I think sometimes students lose a little bit of the strength, because they do become so aware of their emotions every single time, which is a great thing. But you also need a little bit of a harder exterior sometimes in this career.
I love that. That is actually a really good point. Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's funny because I know I'm all about naming it to tame it. If you've got an emotion, sometimes it's important to go, oh gosh, acknowledging it, then it sort of tames it. But sometimes there can be this escalation. And yeah, sometimes you just need to cork it and get on with your day.
I think that this industry is so tough because you're working with people, and at the end of the day, you're not going to get along with everyone all of the time. So you have to learn how to navigate that. And sometimes people will say things and it's going to hurt, but they don't mean it to personally attack you. It needs to be like, oh, okay, move on. I'm here to get my job done. which obviously to an extent is not the right thing. Like some people need to pull their heads in. But in saying that, I just think, yeah, you need a hard exterior for this career. It's difficult and it takes time and resilience and all of those things. But also in saying that, it's so beautiful and you meet so many amazing people along the way and get to experience something that a lot of other humans in this life don't get to experience, like finding joy in movement and music. Like what a wonderful thing.
So
Um,
I could say you need a hard exterior, but
mm,
not let it harden you. Because knowing
yes.
you, you're actually very flexible, very
Mm,
adaptable, very kind. You've got
mm,
emotions, you're a human being,
yes. Oh,
but
I've
you
got
also
emotions. Mm.
you also know when to put that shield up and
Yes.
to get on with it. And that in
Protect.
itself is an art, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, definitely. I actually couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
That's really insightful of you, everything you just said then. Shows your
Thank you.
emotional maturity.
Oh, thanks, Kate.
Says Kate. No. Sorry, but who am I to... That sounded a
Oh,
little bit superior of me. I didn't mean it like that. But no,
no, that
that
was great.
was very self-aware for
Mm,
sure. I
yeah.
appreciate that. Have a final question. What advice do you have for, you could even say little Amelie at 15 or a student that's around that age that's about to step into full time and wants to go for it? Do you have any tips?
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest advice that I got and finally now am understanding is that everyone is actually truly on their own journey and you have to accept that and be patient with that. I think back to the times at your studio and just crying in my privates going, I'm not getting through my solo. I'm never going to make it. And just in tears and 17-year-old me moving to Sydney alone, living in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself at 17 and freaking out because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And it's like, just take a breath. You're on your own journey. You're not the same person as Joe next to you and Bob on the other side. You're doing your own thing. And you just have to be proud of that and accept that where that's going to take you in its time. I think not to be all universe, but the universe has your back. The world has your journey, your path set out for you. So just ride that and be patient with that. Don't try and be something that you're not. I just,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so beautiful, Amelie. I love it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's really lovely.
thanks, Kate.
Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. And you've got such wisdom to share with some younger ones coming through. And yeah, I just want to say congratulations. And it's so nice to connect with you again.
Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate you so much. All that you've done for me. Thinking about little 5-year-old Amelie coming into your studio, and now here we are. How many
Oh,
years
never.
is that? 15 years? No, 17 years.
Yeah. How old are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm 21. I'm almost 22.
Because
Ah,
I actually, I don't mean to sound condescending because you're still so young, you know what I
I
mean?
know. No,
Which is
don't worry.
actually really nice. Like you've got
It
all of
is.
this future and you've done so much in such a short time.
Yeah, I am reminded every day. All my friends, I'm the baby of every friend group here, and everyone is a lot older than me. So it's refreshing for me to remember I've still got
Yeah,
time on my
time,
side, which is
100%. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Sometimes
Oh,
it's crazy to think about the past 5, 7 years of my life, where I've been and what I've done, and I'm just like, wow, I'm so fortunate to live this life at
and
this
you did it.
age as well.
And you
Yeah.
did it. You did it. You've
Yeah.
done that yourself, you know. You're
Mm.
the one that, and again, you didn't have your parents going, you need to do this. Come on, push, push, push. You were the one.
Uh,
They just stood back and held that container for you to go
yeah.
to.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much, my beautiful friend. You are very inspirational to so many out there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kate. I appreciate it.